What's up? It's Jarvis here from Obscure Movie Club. I know it's been a while. I've been really slacking. More or less just kind of been going through a weird period in my life and really procrastinating editing. I'm not a big fan of that, but it's part of the game. I know I've watched tons of movies since last being on here. Today I'm going to be talking about two films which are kind of almost sequels. They're kind of spiritual successors, if you will. That is The Doom Generation and Nowhere. Both of these films were directed by Greg Araki. I'm probably fucking that name up, but he is a very fascinating director. I've recently stumbled upon. I'm not going to pretend I was on his stuff really early, but I heard about these films in an old clip from like a 90s radio show, and I was like, that sounds interesting. Looked them up on Letterboxd and decided to put them on, and they are very fascinating films. I'd say essentially that these are kind of fever dream, very dark, very nihilistic. I would say purposely provocative in a good way. Very interestingly, let's start with The Doom Generation. I thought it was very fascinating. It's even just that opening credit scene. I've never really seen a film that put a very heterosexual film made by Greg Araki, which I think was a funny joke. The Doom Generation stars Rose McGowan, James Duval, and Jonathan Screech. Hopefully I'm saying his name's correct too. I feel like Tim Heidecker here when it comes to pronouncing a lot of these names. But essentially this film, if you're familiar with Natural Born Killers, it's a very similar story. Essentially this boyfriend and girlfriend character who are very unique, I would say alternative, but like a true alternative, especially this 90s industrial era, Nine Inch Nails, they weren't part of that grunge scene, so I feel like it has this unique subculture that it really portrays well, especially Rose McGowan. Hello, Donna. Especially for the first few minutes of the film, it kind of takes a minute for you to understand her character. You're kind of like, what is this going to be something I hate? But you will grow to love her. She's like the queen of one-liners and comebacks. And she did an amazing job. The other people here too do also a great job, especially James Duval. He has this very dry tone to him, and he kind of is really good at almost playing not a kind of a stoner type, but with more confidence. It doesn't really just fully play into this stupid character. But easily for me, what made this film so fascinating, because I'm not really a big fan of Natural Born Killers. I don't really like Oliver Stone movies. I think he's honestly kind of a hack that was really successful. I really don't like Scarface. I think that's, in my opinion, a pretty garbage movie. I'm sorry. Other than Pacino, I really don't see anything to take away from that film, to gather from that film. Maybe I need to rewatch it. I'm waiting a few years to rewatch it because the last time I watched it, it kind of just left a bad taste in my mouth. This was a movie that was so hyped and everything like that. But let's not get into Scarface and Oliver Stone. But I think for me, the visual style of this film is excellent. The way that they are able to create these sets that are so unique and so cool to look at. The lighting in this film is absolutely amazing. The sets that they go to, and really for me, I felt a sense of really relating to these characters. Even though this film is over 30 years old, I think a lot of us, Generation Gen X, really were the first generation to kind of feel it, but definitely Millennial and Gen Z, and certainly Gen Alpha whenever they get old enough to be adults, that it feels like all the cards are stacked up against us. Capitalism, the system, it's only meant and only there to benefit a certain group of people, while the rest of us are left to suffer and try to make meaning of this very hard and kind of tumultuous life. And this film really plays into a lot of sexual aggression and violence, which always can make for an interesting film. And especially, I don't want to spoil the ending. If you have yet to see it, I highly recommend you getting around to this movie. If you love 90s angst, unique looking films, good characters. I highly recommend this. But that ending will leave you with a lot of uncomfortability, but also too how they executed it. There were so many different ways that they could have executed this scene, but I think the way that Greg was able to capture this and also make it very unique, especially with that whole warehouse, the spotlight that's going off, it almost feels like a club. And I left the movie feeling not depressed in a way, but certainly feeling the dark feeling that I think a lot of these characters are going through. And it will kind of leave you like, well, where I was really curious where these characters, but overall, I think it's an absolutely excellent movie. I highly recommend it for people. I'm going to give this a 85 out of 100. It is a great, great movie. I think everyone should watch it. Next, we're going into Nowheres, which is not, it has a very similar feel to it. It's kind of a spiritual successor, just in the fact I think that James Duval, he kind of is the same character as he did in the first movie, but it doesn't really bring up any of the events that happened before. It doesn't bring up his relationship with Rose McGowan. And essentially what this film is a very similar with a lot of young adults who are dealing with a lot of different issues, mostly relationships, sex, and drugs. You know, the three things that make us all feel something. And there's a wide range of characters in this film. I think roughly probably about 15 main characters or characters that you really spend some time with. And they all kind of, during this one night in seemingly the summer, you see all of their lives have changed. All of their existence and the lives that they had before are now either severely changed, either from like an intense trauma that happens to one of the characters in this film, and that was a very, very dark and scary scene. And so I think all these characters are going through a big change, and for really what their motivations are is basically to get high and to have sex. That's essentially their main motivation in life, and for a lot of the young 20-year-olds, that usually is their motivation in life. This film also absolutely nailed it with the set design. The look of this film, absolutely brilliant. It is set in late 1990s Los Angeles. It also has an excellent cast of characters in here. James Duval obviously kind of plays the same person, but there's even a young Christina Applegate. Sarah Lazez, I think, also puts in an amazing performance. A very tragic performance when you see the life of her character as it progresses through the movie. It's very dark. It's very sad. Also for Christopher Knight, I don't know, this is kind of a really obscure pick. I really loved the show. It was a very trashy 2000s and Newlyweds with Adrienne Curry, who I probably honestly might be up there for like my biggest celebrity crush, even though I know she's like awful now and like this like big conspiracy idiot who's basically shunned herself into a very niche community of like right-wing conspiracy theorists. But at the time, during the 90s, 2000s, the Next Top Model era, like for 5 years, she, in my opinion, was probably the hottest woman on the planet. And I don't know, anytime I see Christopher Knight in a movie, he's from with that shitty 70s show, Brady Bunch. I never watched it. I'm sorry, maybe it's not shitty. But anytime I see him, I am like inherently jealous of him because he had prime Adrienne Curry for sure. There's one element of this movie that maybe on rewatch I might get more for, but I didn't fully understand it, even though I thought they executed it well. But there's also this kind of extraterrestrial character who randomly shows up and has like a ray gun. I thought the costume design was really excellent. The way that they filmed it was really good. But I don't know if I really needed it in a film like this. I kind of rather it just stay with real people, real characters, not going into this sci-fi existential stuff. Not too much. I don't mind existential stuff, but I didn't really want this movie to kind of have a sci-fi edge to it. But it's very similar in the way that a lot of these characters are trying to find meaning. They're trying to find a path in life, try to make this existence sustainable in a way. And I thought they really, really executed it. Also, the music in both of these movies, I didn't really bring up the music in the last one, excellent. It's fucking awesome. Late 90s is one of the best decades for music ever, and this has some really good stuff. Kind of more, I guess, in the ends of industrial shoegaze, I believe it's called, like that My Bloody Valentine style music. All excellent. Like if I see the CD for the soundtrack, I really doubt I'll ever see that out in the wild. Where my province has absolutely no taste in that kind of stuff. But I would love to rock the soundtrack. You definitely get on streaming services, and I've added a few songs from these movies to my playlist. But overall, Nowhere, I think also, to me, just a similar quality film. I kind of really had a hard time really agreeing with the idea of having an alien in this universe. But hey, it was a decision that they made, and I don't think they did a terrible job with it. It didn't look really cheesy or anything like that. It did somewhat work for the story, but I think I could have done without it. So overall, I'm going to give this one an 85 out of 100. I highly recommend both of these movies. Go seek out and watch. Alright, so also you probably have noticed I have moved my setup back to, I don't know if I had this setup before. I don't know, I didn't have this setup before. This is a new setup. I've used to have my office in this room, my office. I make stupid videos like this in here. But yeah, I had some changes in my life. I have a roommate that's moving out. Nothing like that. We didn't have a fight or anything like that. So things are going to be changing, but I'm hoping now, I don't really have to worry if anyone's in the house. I kind of like to do this stuff when I'm alone and can say whatever I want, scream. Sorry, I also have a bit of a sore voice. I also want to change the name of this channel to Obscure Film Club, because that's, to me, what I want this to be. I want this to be a place where you can find those weird, obscure movies that you maybe used to remember, maybe heard of, maybe found out along the way. And I want to give those movies more representation on this channel. If you want to watch a Star Wars review, you have 10 million different places to find that review. To me, there's just too much of it. So I'm not really trying to do kind of those mainstream or contemporary films. I want to find those films that are off the beaten path, give them some love, give them some representation, and if you're along for that journey, I highly recommend subscribing. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.